Hi there, I'm just doing a short video on this Skoda Superb. It's got a p0299 fault, coming up low boost. There's no other faults in the system whatsoever, and with this being a 2018, I really struggled to find any information on the turbo system setup. So what I've done is I've went through quite a detailed diagnostic process, and I'm going to just make a wee quick video on a simple thing just to sort of help people out and guide some people if they ever come across similar issues, because this was a wee bit of a pest for me to get to the bottom of. So let's go. So as I said, this had no actual faults in it, other than the low boost fault, so I was pretty sure it was going to be a mechanical issue. The first thing I sort of done was sort of checked all the vacuum pipes, things like that. Pretty confident that they were all okay, but what I did find when researching from other people was obviously we all know about the N75 valves that are a common issue on these, which was obviously the first thing I did try and replace, just to see if it would make any difference at all, as I knew there was a decent vacuum going to the N75 valve. I thought I'd try that first and see what was going on, see if it helped. 9 times out of 10 that does tend to be the problem. So that didn't do anything at all. Next step, I moved on to a bit of information I found online. Was a lot of people saying these actually mess up quite a lot. It's just a one-way valve, and the one that was on it did seem to be working, but I thought, you know what, it was less than £20 for the part, so I just thought, you know what, for the cost of it, I'll just try it, see if it makes any difference. But again, no difference whatsoever. I then put a new boost pressure sensor on it as well, just in case that was possibly faulty. It was reading okay, but again, I have had issues in the past where I thought things are reading okay, getting readings on them on live data, and they've still turned out to be faulty and things like that. So just in case it was maybe sticking at a point and not actually being able to use its full range, I just changed that, but again, it didn't make any difference whatsoever. I then suggested to the customer that we remove the turbo and at least get a look at the turbo. As you can see, I have replaced it. That's another completely different job in itself. To replace the turbo on this, you've got to remove the drive shafts, EGR coolers, you've got to at least dismount the DPF unit. You don't have to take it out, but at least demount it so that you can get access to the manifold bolts and stuff. That is a nightmare to change. The reason we changed the turbo, it was I took it off, and I did say to the customer at the time, look, I don't believe this is the root cause of your problem. However, since we have removed your turbo, and if you look at this turbo blade here, you can see that that's bent, this one right here, whereas if you look all the way around, all the rest of them are pretty good. And I was always a bit concerned that was not an issue at the moment, as I said, not the root cause of the problem, but I believe that me leaving this in there could cause further problems later down the line. I mean, if you look at some of the gouges and stuff in the side of it, where it's like the turbo's maybe been catching things, and there's a few scrapes and stuff in there where maybe the turbine blades are starting to maybe the impeller's starting to wear a little bit. So we replaced that on that fact, more a safety issue, that it caused further problems down the line, but didn't think it was the root cause of the problem at the moment. So after fitting the turbo, the vehicle was still running the same, so that's it now. Had all the vacuum pipes checked and confirmed were okay. We knew the vacuum coming out was great. Tried to change that valve, the wee one-way valve, changed the main control valve. Obviously it's got a new actuator on it and a new turbo on it, and the car was still really flat. So my next process was looking at these EGR valves. This has actually got 2 EGR valves. There's one at the back where the cooler is, and there's one at the front on the intake manifold. So what I done is I was having a wee look. As you can see, everything, I mean, it's pretty carboned up, but it is clear in there. Oh, what's going on? So as you can see, it is pretty clear in there, but it is a bit carboned. So what I done is I started having a wee look at these units, First thing I noticed was this is got like it almost sounds like something's broken inside, but I actually got a new one just to try and see if it was any different. It's actually exactly the same. And what you can actually do with these is if you go into the diagnostics, you can actually check to make sure all of these are working. So your low pressure exhaust gas recirculation valve is on the back, so I can basically hit activate on this, and as you watch you will see it open. And as I said, I did try a brand new one of these as well, and that is how much that is supposed to open. I was concerned that it maybe wasn't opening fully and that it was maybe damaged inside, not being recognised as an electronic fault, so it's maybe not detecting it. Obviously again, that seems to all be working fine then. So the next stage was checking the front EGR valve. Again, it doesn't open very much, but I did try and get a new one, and it's exactly the same. The new one just opens exactly the same again. So if you do have these issues and you think they're not correct, they do seem to be, don't worry about that. I think that is how much they're supposed to open. And again, checking the throttle valve, that was all closing and opening as it should. And I was actually at the point, I'd actually tried new components on every one of these, and if they weren't what the fault was, which they weren't, I was just returning the parts. So that was pretty straightforward. I'm lucky that I've got a good supplier that allows me to do that. And eventually, when I was going to start putting it back together, it's actually quite hard to see when it's all fitted, but I eventually thought, you know what, I'm going to take the inlet manifold off and get a look inside this. So there is a bit of work involved in getting the inlet manifold off on these cars. It is a bit of a tricky one, especially with this fuel pump being in the road. You need to remove the fuel pipe to get access to this lower bolt. You need to obviously take all these water pipes away and get access to these two bottom ones. They're actually not hard to access, but you just don't know they're there, obviously. And there's just a few other wee bits and bobs that you need to take off to get access. I'm not going to go into that, I'm just purely trying to do a diagnostic video here. What I found with this was it's actually blocked. So I knew I was looking for a mechanical issue, and hence the reason I was checking EGRs for blockages and things like that. But if you look in there, you can clearly see that it's pretty badly carboned up, and those fins restricting the airflow into the intake, which is obviously going to restrict spooling up the turbo. So I'm making this video at the moment while I'm waiting on the new intercooler coming. It's the first time I've been pretty confident that I've resolved what the issue is. As you can see how it's supposed to be clear, pretty dirty in there. Obviously this side is the exit side. Your inlet side is completely choked full. So once I put this back together, we should be able to confirm if my diagnosis is right. But I believe if anyone has further problems with cars like this, try to change the N75 valve, which is the basic first thing everyone really does, and everything else seems okay. If you check these and they all seem okay, it's probably quite likely that you're going to have a blockage in the inlet manifold. So bear that in mind when diagnosing these, because this was a bit of a headache to get to the bottom of. Just as I said, there was no information anywhere online from anybody else with regards to this turbo setup on this with this newer vehicle. So I hope that helps some of you. I'll follow the rest of it up when I've got it back together. I've got the new manifold and hopefully we're all good. So that's it, that's the engine all built back up now. Obviously with the manifold being totally choked like that, what I also thought is that the DPF would probably be much the same as well. So what I've done is I removed this your AdBlue injector there, and put DPF Doctor down the DPF. Also removed the front knock sensor there and put a wee bit in just to try and help unblock the pre-cat if there was anything in there. So yeah, main problem ended up being the manifold being choked itself, and obviously DPF's been quite badly choked up as well, even though it wasn't actually faulting anything. Obviously I think the DPF's probably been choked for a while, or at least choking up to an extent, carboning up, allowing EGR to let that stuff get into the inlet, and then once it's in the inlet, that's it. It's just restricting flow everywhere. So not a great flow coming through the exhaust, and not a great flow coming through the inlet. There we go. Starting to see if we can clear it a bit now. Definitely had a blocked exhaust. Right, so that's us back for road test. Everything seems to be okay. Had it for a decent drive there, done a good 10 miles in it, quite happy. You weren't even getting a mile before the engine management light was coming on. So yeah, quick run through everything that was done. Obviously, first of all, tried the basic things like the control valve, the one-way valve, checked all the vacuum pipes, things like that. Everything seemed okay. The actuator was all fine. Replaced the turbo due to some damage that we'd recognised, but not anything that we thought was causing the main issue of the car. Then obviously checked all the EGR valves, couldn't find any problems with them whatsoever. And then the main cause obviously ended up being the manifold and the DPF both being badly choked. So that's a wee bit for you. Never had any lights coming on with regards to DPFs or anything like that. However, turned out that was the issue. DPF and manifold, inlet manifold and exhaust DPF choked up badly, not allowing the car to breathe, and the car wouldn't recognise anything other than a mechanical low boost fault. So that's a wee one, because anybody else has any problems with something similar, hopefully that gives you a little bit of help. Thanks.